when you got the Rockefeller Rothschild connection behind all of those movers and shakers of politics, that plan that they came up with a long time ago still has a lot of momentum. And if people don't block that play from running, on the goal line, they're going to score. Even from Christian Zionist Steven Crowder position, I think he has some criticism of AIPAC. So I found that to kind of, I don't remember specifically, but I remember it being kind of encouraging because I thought that they were already they already checked the box for Israel before they even opened the booklet to read about what's going on. But they know enough to be like, part of this doesn't seem right. Right. And if they can catch on to that and then they catch on to another fact, maybe they could find their way out, because they've got millions and millions of people in those audiences over there in Rumble land. And if some of those people ever saw the Rumble feature, the underground history of the Israel-Palestine conflict, they might all self-liberate from a lot of those myths and legends that they got artificially attached to by means of not reality. That's how I will say that nicely. And then after we cover these two stories, so there's the AIPAC question, separating fact from fiction, Steven Crowder. And then we have breaking points, Oscar winner lynched and kidnapped by Israeli forces. I'm sure they're just exaggerating that type of thing doesn't go on in this day and age. But also, this is not The Onion. This is Ground.News. Red Cross outraged by killing of medics in Gaza as even Macron, he's a Rothschild banker. He calls on Netanyahu to stop the bombing. So anyway, we'll have to check in with that because it is interesting to see a former Rothschild banker, he literally worked for the Rothschild Bank, to be saying, hey, Bibi, stop the bombing, because Israel is a British and French Rothschild banking family project. So saith the history. So unless something more elucidating comes from the JFK 80,000 files, I think that's still the status quo of what's going on in that situation. So let's go to Steven Crowder and see what they are learning more recently about maybe the not-so-greatness of AIPAC and the Christians United for Israel PACs that are very, very financially influential over our politicians in a way that is probably parallel to blackmail. So let's check it out.
This is something that and just please give me a moment to explain some context here. I don't like seeing this division that you see on the right, and I think that you have this identity politics, this kind of class warfare going on really on what used to be the far left, which is the actual party of anti-Semitism, and then they've sort of connected with the far right in being anti-Semitic. There are actual people out there to whom the Jews are at the center of all problems in the world. And then you have people who, just like accusing you of racism, homophobia, transphobia, they use anti-Semitic to try and silence any legitimate criticism. Let me be clear about my stance. I hope that Israel wipes Hamas off the face of the earth.
Why don't you tell us now about this no other land situation?
Yeah, my God. Yeah, put this next element up. And this news came out within, it felt like an hour or two.
It was within hours
of a learning that our drop site colleague had been killed. So Hamdan Bilal, the co-director of No Other Land, as reported by Yuval Abraham, his co-director was lynched by a group of settlers. Now, it appears that they did not kill him, beat him ruthlessly. He was able to get into an ambulance. The IDF then, or some security forces, stopped the ambulance and dragged him out and took him to detention. And as often happens, the victim of this attack becomes the one that then literally gets interrogated and charged with something related to the attack.
Yeah, so can we put the image of him up on the screen? Just identify for people who aren't familiar with the documentary.
So that's Yuval on the far right.
Yeah.
And that's Hamdan there to his left there, bald-headed gentleman there.
And so this is in the United States of America. This was Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So he was here a few weeks ago on the stage of the Oscars.
Accepting his Oscar.
Accepting this.
For a documentary making the case that these violent settlers are illegally uprooting people from their land. And then he goes back to his land and the violent settlers continue trying to uproot him from his land.
While AIPAC may not be the biggest lobby, I would challenge the other side to, find a bigger lobby for a foreign national government to influence our politicians than that sort of organization. It would at least be on par with what? All those other places that out lobbied them, that seem to be people who were U.S. taxpayer citizen type people and not some foreign national type of,
Yep, for sure. Now, what they were doing with Crowder is they were pointing to total lobbying dollars spent, but I
Yeah.
found that there's a distinction between lobbying dollars and campaign contributions, and it seems like AIPAC runs the gamut when it comes to campaign contributions. And I was looking at this, and it says they spent over $100 million in the 2024 election cycle between AIPAC and United Democracy Project. And I found a source here, TNR New Republic, the 45.2 million spent on candidates for Congress during the 2024 elections by AIPAC.
and that's what you
then
can see on
also-
X from AIPAC tracker.
Yep.
But that doesn't track like Adelson or his
Sure.
widow
Exactly.
giving
Yep.
100 million just directly to Trump.
Totally. This is specifically AIPAC, and then that other association they talked about, which is the United Democracy Project, which is a super political action committee bolstering pro-Israel candidates, and they spent 61 million. So combined between the two, So if we're talking not lobbying, but overall influence campaign donations, yeah, over 100 million bucks right there, not including all of these single big ticket donors. So there you go.
Look, our Congress people, they get like 100 grand a year, so they're not going to be bribed, dude. They're very comfortable. They are people of the highest virtue who can withstand the highest bidder. No, just kidding. That's not how they got there. I want to change the topic. This has nothing to do with what we were just talking about. It's a topic called ethnic cleansing. I'm just going to read out a definition for you real quick so we can put something on the record here that is definitely not ethnic cleansing, but you wouldn't know that unless we read the definition. Ethnic cleansing is the systematic forced removal of ethnic, racial, or religious groups from a given area with the intent of making the society ethnically homogeneous. That means all made up of the same people, along with direct removal such as deportation or population transfer. It also includes indirect methods aimed at forced migration by coercing the victim group to flee and preventing its return, such as murder, rape, and the Nakba. I'm sorry, property destruction. I misread that part. All right, now, with that being said, let's now go to a series of articles that are only being reported apparently by the right. 83% of the reports on this are right-handed, but the first group of Gaza migrants heads to Indonesia under Israeli-led emigration program. So they're just moving some. This is just a little test transfer, to make sure it goes through. It's like when you send a little something to make sure the account's there on the Venmo or whatever. They're just sending 100 Palestinians from Gaza going to Indonesia, because that's another place that might have people that are oppressed and can receive more oppressed people over there, I guess. And there's a variety of outlets reporting on this. Unfortunately, for people on the Rachel Maddow train or other people that should be probably interested in that topic, they're not going to see it because their outlets aren't even covering such stories. Now, when you take people from one place and you move them to another place and that you had planned to move them the whole time, like you can go back and read David Ben-Gurion's diaries and things like that, the exportation of the indigenous population of Palestine always was part of the plan so that Eastern Europeans who changed their last names could go move in. If people saw it for what it was, I don't think there'd be so much ambiguity, indifference, or maybe even assumption that you're, on the wrong side of history might come to like people's attention. But they never look. They're not interested, and right now they're binging on some Netflix series. They're not trying to understand the news. All right, so the kidnapping of an Oscar-winning documentary filmmaker, lynching, the beating, the torturing, all that sort of stuff, that does bring into line the agenda of Zionism with the kind of radical settlers who seem to be very orthodox. I mean, that's a thing that they do have in common, even though they have a lot of things that they do differently. Whereas Zionism is like more secular and was founded by atheists. The Orthodox who are doing the settling, they seem to, be really into the story that they're acting out on other people, who, by the way, follow their life from a different story, right? So that's part of it. You're talking about the Holy Land where you've got billions of people who have one of three belief systems all kind of culminate. And it's like you got a church or a mosque here, but you got the Ark of the Covenant underneath it. And sorry, we're gonna have to take over your stuff to get to the other stuff that's hidden. They're just making all these countries have nuclear weapons at this point. I mean, they're just making a World War III type of scenario that we do not need to have at this point in history. We should be, getting people emancipated from mental slavery. We don't need to be getting radiation burns from something other than being out at the beach too long.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we've outgrown this whole World War stuff. You'd think. Come on, you guys. We're all trying to prosper. We're trying to go to Mars. What the hell?
Not as long as everyone's still got nukes all over the place that are being maintained by people who come from Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity. I mean, they're making it Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah.
They didn't take that as a warning. They're like, let's do that for real.
They just, dude, that's their only hope of actually getting with chicks is that they have to wipe out all, and the whole scene where he's like, and then we have to have the most premium women and only the most intellectual minds get to. So that's their only play, dude. That's their only play. They're going to be the pimps of the bunker.
Pimps of the bunker.
Yeah. Pimping out in the bunker, dude. It's their only hope.
Well, I think their other hope is world domination. If you're just referring to like a James Bond type villain in the eugenics elite and wanting to separate from the rest of humanity, it's not too far from what they're actually trying to do. Now, once upon a time, there was a guy called Cecil Rhodes, and he left an agenda, if you will, in his last will and testament. And that agenda was to serve the Freemasons of Britain and the British Empire, which kind of created that British Freemasonry. So it's a joint, it's a joining of two goals of other organizations. So when you do something like that and you leave a bunch of money toward it and you have powerful international banking family to kind of help make it realized, the 20th century is a story of that coming to fruition. About halfway through that century, in the mid-1940s, we had a movement here in this country called Union Now with Britain. Now, it depends if you... it depends on where you live what the title was called, right? So I'm going to carefully open this artifact of history, and we will get to see the entire title, and I'll let you see inside. It's a Fragile book. It might be Italian. There we go. Fragile. All right. Union Now by Britain. Union Now with Britain by Clarence Strait or Straight. It depends on how you prefer to pronounce it. Author of Union Now, which is kind of what this book is, another version of it. It says, calling on Americans and citizens of the British Commonwealth to begin, while they may, the United States of Man. Oh, it's a pretty big plan, pretty bold plan. But when you're building on the plan of Cecil Rhodes and it's already halfway done and they've already had all these major accomplishments, it's pretty easy to start pushing forward world federalism and this plan for an English-speaking world. Now, who is Clarence Strait? Maybe we should go over to the history blueprint. This is published, by the way, in 1941. This is a first edition copy by Harper and Row, and it's a very detailed plan. In fact, let me show you where I first heard about this. Like, why would I go and seek out a first edition copy of this particular book? I didn't do that straight away. Let me wrap this back up. All right, we'll do that in post-production. I just don't want to damage it. Stay there. I first found this. Now, this is made by a printing company. In fact, it was printed by Blue Ridge Printing and Publishing back in probably 2004. And I heard about this document, and I looked on eBay, and these thoughtful people had found this book that I just showed you, and they scanned it in. So I paid I don't know, $40 or something like that for a copy of that book I just showed you. And what this did was this took what Carol Quigley was talking about in 1966 in a censored book called Tragedy and Hope. And I was a little incredulous and skeptical. I'm like, well, maybe that's not what's going on. And then I found this where it's like, here's the actual blueprint for a new world order, basically, where they're bringing it all together. And they're very, like, there was a whole movement for the Anglo-American establishment to get back together America with Great Britain. And so, there's a variety of elements in the book that are covered. And, the United States must keep on being the United States. And we have to, kind of keep the branding and be like the front porch for the British Empire, property manager, keep control of the sea, keeps the world at peace. So the things that the British used to do on behalf of the world for all the English speaking people, they would have America get into and do. And so, how nationalism leaves you out on the rim. We got to stop being nationalists. And we got to get with the New World Order. We need to have the union, the World Global Union, a World Federation citizen, right? So this is not conspiracy theory. This is the people who are doing the conspiracy printing about how they would like to do the conspiracy in great detail. And this was, let's see, was this, I'm pretty sure, let me look up the Torkelson testimony. I'm pretty sure that there was a congressman, Thork, Jacob Torkelson. Here we go. This is in a congressional. So before this book came out in 1941, in our congressional record in 1940, August 19th, Steps Toward British Union, a World State in International Strife by Honorable Jacob Torkelson of Montana. And he gives the whole plan, the British infiltration of the United States intel community, right? So when I'm showing you stuff in the history blueprint and talking about these things, this isn't, look, here's the last will and testament of Cecil Rhodes. This is in congressional records of the United States government that we are talking about. Like, we're in this country. This is not reported in the New York Times. Why do you think that is? Because there's bigger things at play. So anyway, there's a lot of facts in this disclosure that is in the congressional record. And if anyone, took the time to go through and parse it, you would, the doubts that you have about the plan being a real thing, it's like they leave. They're evicted by the facts of the matter that are now at your beck and call. So you can find that document. By the way, if you were interested, I could open up over here on, looks like it comes from Internet Archive. Dun, dun, dun. You must log in to view this content. Congressional record regarding they changed the title on this. Someone's put some opinion in here. They put some spoiler alert opinions in there. Anyway, the Torkelson testimony, steps toward a British Union and state, all the stuff we were just talking about. They just, added some, what do they call that? Rhetorical commentary. Like I said, none of those stories that we just heard connect to each other. They're all just independent little pieces of information, and they have no relevance or substance or meaning in today's news. But union now, or maybe not union now. Maybe we should think about that. Trump and MAGA might think it's a great idea, but I do have a picture floating around of the Queen. Right, she's wearing a red hat. It says "Make America Great Britain Again." So it used to be like a joke, a meme, and now it's in the news. And let's see, I do have that right here. Yeah, it's a secret offer to make a secret offer, get us back in the union. And when you got the Rockefeller Rothschild connection behind all of those movers and shakers of politics, that plan that they came up with a long time ago still has a lot of momentum. And if people don't block that play from running, on the goal line, they're going to score. And their score is to, eradicate individual liberty and freedom, cognitive liberty, especially for future generations, starting with their planned merger. So I don't think it's a good idea. I haven't thought it was a good idea since I started producing and publishing media and doing research. And I'm probably still not going to think it's a good idea going forward. But we'll see. We'll see how it all works out because Greenland might be really nice to have. I don't know. Go to Canada without having to cross a border. That could be cool. I mean, the world is changing in ways faster than most people can realize. And like Ferris Bueller said, if you don't, life goes by pretty fast. And if you don't stop to take a look around, it could pass you by. Paul, what do you think about the Anglo-American establishment's plan to get us all back together?
Well, there's all these different ways to get the band back together, but I'm just so glad they want to offer all the benefits of Canadian citizenship and U.S. citizenship and just share all those benefits with each other. Maybe we'll get a Second Amendment and a First Amendment because that would really help in Canada. But also, what if they try and impose the hate speech laws of Canada and the gun control registration of Canada onto the United States? Because to me, I don't see unification as being like, hey, let's share whoever's got the most freedoms and liberty. It seems to be more like, hey, let's consolidate the power and use this existing model for one of these Five Eyes that seems to be working to oppress people and take away their rights and property, and let's use it on the other eyes of the Five Eyes. And so, yeah, I'm kind of against centralization because it just seems to lead to more getting fucked at the drive-through.
Well, and there's also like a recurring theme of Israeli spyware throughout all these things, whether it's the Promise scandal with Robert Maxwell or, various other intelligence projects. Comaverse during 9/11, it was one of two Israeli companies that like everybody's phones ran through. And there was a whole bunch of other surveillance type stuff that was going on back then. So it's been a long standing theme, not only of Israeli surveillance on Americans, but now like kind of providing the cartels who are at war with Americans with the additional software they might need to fight the war on a different type of level. And when they're able to commandeer a device you depend on and turn it into something that they can use. Now, I think the upside was it costs whatever $500,000 to do that to one phone. So they're not necessarily like blanket trying to like just do that to all Americans. You'd have to be a selected target that merits not being whacked because you could kill someone for probably tenth of that. I'm thinking pretty easy with the cartel world, 50 grand versus 500 grand for a software license that is trackable and you got to pay online and all that other stuff that goes on with those packages of software licenses. So, yeah, I think that's interesting, but it also reminded me of Lavender and the other types of AI that they were using to persecute, prosecute, and kill Palestinians that, started with more public notice after 10/7, but it was probably going on prior to that, the Where's Daddy type of AI app that would track people and kill them and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Well, it's funny seeing so many Christian Zionists that are pushing towards wanting some form of the rapture when, to me, I could see a version of Revelations where it's just an AI gets control of Pegasus and basically opens up everyone's device and exposes everyone's, dark chat secrets and porn histories and all these things. And that ends up being Judgment Day, is just everyone's online debauchery being exposed by this Israeli, spyware controlled by an AI that's just like, hey, let's see how they all do with each other when we show them what they really think of each other. But I don't know. That's just a hilarious sketch-like scenario.
AI levels the playing field. Logan's Run 2, it's called.
R.I.P. George Clayton Johnson.
You have to just watch the movie for the story and not the special effects. Or you could look at it as a historical piece of special effects. Just don't watch Star Wars because it was made the year before. And the effects were less special, and that's what made it not such a popular movie back then. But very popular for pointing out the AI use in Technocracy and the artificial control of human beings and giving them life limitations and, the AI kind of perpetuating itself at the cost of human beingness, which is obviously something we should take as a warning and not an invitation to go to the next level of Technocracy.
twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week course. It teaches leadership, entrepreneur skills, executive skills, all these types of things that I saw were taken out of our education system in order to make the schooling or indoctrination system that we've all probably went through. And it has served us well enough to be interchangeable cogs in the machine of the globalists. But if we want a homestead, if we want write our own ticket, work from home job, work from anywhere type of situation, they're not exactly handing those out at the end of college. They give you a piece of paper and they're like, good luck. So reality is dropping us off here, but the demands of reality are up here. So I created Autonomy to help people close that gap for themselves so they can level up their skills to the demands of the situations that life is putting in front of us presently. Life's demands of intellect and understanding precision and complexity are ever increasing. The schooling didn't prepare us for it. The media is not going to do anything but reinforce what schooling prepared us for. And so we're going to have to take a leadership position and take steps off the beaten path to kind of blaze our own trail in life. What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come